Welcome back, guys, to another episode of the Football Universe, NFL Universe. We're still working on the name, I guess, but we'll have one eventually. I'm back with my co-host Max,
What's up, guys?
and honestly, in terms of the name, like it's me and Max. Like it's the important thing here, guys. It's the
Exactly.
important thing here. So first week of football is right here. It happened, and we're gonna go through it. I think it was a lot of exciting games this week. A lot of games turned out that in ways that I truly did not expect. So it's going to be a fun week to talk about. Going right into it, the first game officially of the football season this year, we had the Cowboys versus the Buccaneers. Buccaneers pull out this one 31-29. Was a fantastic game throughout. And it was back and forth, back and forth. Dak Prescott, 403 yards, 3 touchdowns, interception. Fantastic game for him. Just going through the stats here. Zeke only had 33 yards. I'm a little concerned for Zeke. I'll say on the Cowboys side. Very unproductive last year, and it seems like he's not getting any more productive this year. So he's maybe a shell of himself. Who's to say? It's still early in the season, but that does concern me. Only 33 rushing yards. Receiving wise, you had your two. Amari Cooper, 139 yards with 2 touchdowns, and we had CeeDee Lamb with 104 yards and a touchdown. Fantastic game from them. And then on defense, Buccaneers offensive line's pretty good. I don't think they registered a sack looking, but I know they had a couple interceptions on Brady. So going over to the Buccaneers side, Brady, 379 yards, 4 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Leonard Fournette, 32 yards rushing, but I know Leonard Fournette also had a decent game receiving too, with 27 yards receiving. They had 5 receptions. Good PPR guy. I picked with Raheem Mostert going down, which we'll get to a little bit later. He's on my bench, so that helps. I was excited to see Antonio Brown. I think he's like third in receiving yards in the league after this game. 121 yards and a touchdown for him. Antonio Brown seems to be back. Great game for him. Godwin, 105 yards and a touchdown. Gronkowski, 2 touchdowns, which is more productive than he was throughout the entire regular season that he came back last year. Mike Evans, silent per, I would say, usual at this point. Mike Evans is really high and lows in terms of his performances. One of his lows, 24 yards receiving. Overall, I just want to say this: Buccaneers pull out the win. If you guys remember looking into this game, it was minute 30 left. Right, you cannot give the Buccaneers the ball with a minute 30 left. You have to kill more clock because you have Brady, and Brady does what he does, drives down the field. Questionable pass interference call at the end there. I was good with the no call there. If you guys remember back to the game, I think the Buccaneers deserve this one in the end. I think it says less about the Buccaneers, more about the Cowboys. Very competitive with Dak. I don't want to say this as a Giants fan, but it seems like the Cowboys are going to win the NFC East with the performance they had against the Buccaneers. If they can continue to play like that, given Buccaneers one of the best teams in the league, and then you go against the NFC East, which is a mess to say the least. The Cowboys had a pretty good performance today. I would project them at this point to win the NFC East. Really early to say that, but again, they had a great performance. If you're a Cowboys fan, Cowboys, you should be proud. Max?
I really think, it says more about the Cowboys. I think it says more about Dak Prescott than anything, because you look at the way he came back after mangling his ankle the way he did, and to come back and put up that good of a performance in the first game of the year where you could be really sloppy. Hats off to such a great performance. Yeah, he might have lost, but it's not like he had much help from Zeke Elliott, who I might have said earlier on the podcast, I didn't think he'd have a good game. And mainly because Zach Martin was out, he didn't have a good game. And he could be going downhill. We'll see what happens when Martin's back in the lineup. But yeah, I don't know about him. And again, talking about you can't give Brady these drives to end games as another example. Even when he's 44 years old, he's still going to kill you. And on that potential pass interference, I personally feel strongly that it was not pass interference, because if you really slow it down, both Godwin, I forgot the name of the Cowboys corner who's covering him. You don't know either. But anyway, if you look at it closely, both of them are being physical. And this whole thing, people are saying Godwin extended. He really didn't, I don't think. I thought the corner kind of sold it a little bit. Anyway, I thought it was a good call to keep the flag in the pocket. And I mean, even then, there bad calls happen in games, and that would definitely not rank up there in terms of the worst. People are going to talk about it because that's what people do. But in any event, I thought the Bucs deserved to win that game, and I thought they'd blow them out. So hats off to the Cowboys, but I think the Bucs deserve to win this one.
Yeah, and one concern that I didn't mention before, Sean Murphy-Bunting goes down with an injury. I'm not aware of how bad it is at this point. Yeah, I'm not aware of how bad it is. I'm not sure if there's any updates, but Sean Murphy-Bunting, if you guys remember,
I think he's out for the year.
I would say so. I don't want to call it if it's not that yet, but
it looked pretty bad.
It was bad. And the thing is, he's an upcoming corner, and if you remember in the playoffs last year, he was probably the best person in their entire secondary in the entire playoffs. So to lose a corner like him, where he's coming up, given he's technically, I think, their third string corner, but it's part of that Buccaneers defense. So that's a big loss for them.
It is a big loss.
It's going to hurt.
Absolutely.
So prayers up for Sean Murphy-Bunting. I like to see him play. I hope he gets healthy. Moving on from there, because if you guys remember from our podcast in the past, me and Max was talking about this. It took forever, so we're gonna be like this with the games. So we got the Seahawks and the Colts. Seahawks win at 28-16. Russell Wilson doing what he does normally at the beginning of the season. Fantastic. 4 touchdowns, no interceptions, 254 yards, 18 for 23 passing. That is very efficient. Then you have Chris Carson with 91 yards, no touchdowns. Receiving wise, you have Tyler Lockett, 100 yards and 2 touchdowns, and the DK Metcalf with a touchdown, as well as 60 yards. Everett got a touchdown. Not sure how effective he'll be. He might be a waiver wire pickup if you guys need a tight end. Just going a little bit of fantasy there. On the Colts side of things, Carson Wentz, not a horrible game either. 251 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Jonathan Taylor, I expect a little bit more out of him, only 56 yards there. However, he got involved in the receiving game, obviously, 60 yards. Then we had Pascal, who I think he's a great, I don't think he's drafted in many leagues going off of fantasy. I think he's one of those guys that's going to be a great waiver wire pickup this year. He had 2 touchdowns as well as 43 yards. Overall, I don't have much to say about this game. I only caught glimpses of it. I do think the Seahawks are the better team. If you're the Colts, it's a little bit concerning you weren't able to keep it closer. Overall, they weren't too sloppy on offense. So it wasn't really their issue. Defense gave up a lot of points. I guess offense didn't score as much either. There weren't as many turnovers in this game. I don't really know what to say about it. Seahawks, I think, are the better team. They came out with the win. If you're the Colts, you'd like to see it a little bit closer, but I don't think it's really indicative of anybody's season going forward. Max?
I really think the one area for the Colts, if you're concerned about after this game, is the offensive line, especially the left tackle. Julian Davenport was playing left tackle from the whole game, and he looked really, really bad. So that's concerning moving forward. I was really intrigued to see how Carson Wentz would do. I personally don't really think he's going to do that great, but I guess this game is an indication he's not really going to lose you the game either. He didn't play great, but he didn't play bad either. So, we'll take that for what it's worth. Step up from last year. Now, for the Seahawks, you're kind of right. It's their usual thing where Russell Wilson has a great game to start the season. Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf, that's definitely one of maybe the best receiver duo in the league, if I just think off the top of my head. So, it's one of those games where I feel like the Colts did what they could, but they're just not the better team.
Very true. Agree with everything you said there. So, moving on from there, Jaguars, Texans. Texans win at 31-27, 21 rather, 37-21. Correct myself.
I was going to say.
Yeah. Jaguars. Trevor Lawrence, 332 yards, good amount of yards there, 3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Productive, but he's a rookie quarterback. He's gonna throw 3 interceptions is what he's going to do as he progresses. That's not. I've seen a lot worse numbers from rookie quarterback. Putting up 330 yards and 3 touchdowns. It's promising for the Jaguars. Carlos Hyde was their number 1 running back, 44 yards. James Robinson was pretty much removed from this game, 25 yards. Not much production out of him. DJ Clark, we had 86 yards and a touchdown. And we had Jones with 77 yards and a touchdown, as well as Manhurts had a touchdown for the Jaguars. Looking at the Texans side of things, Tyrod Taylor, 291 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. If you're the Texans and David Culley, that's very promising. Even though it's against the Jaguars, he wasn't horrific. He was pretty solid. Mark Ingram with 85 yards and a touchdown. And then receiving, you had Danny Amendola, 34 yards and a touchdown, as well as Johnson, you had 18 yards and a touchdown. Even though you probably like to see David Johnson be a little more productive in the rushing. He only had 10 yards rushing. What I have to say about this game, honestly, is you can't judge the season based off the first couple games alone. The Texans are 1-0. Texans are undefeated right now. They can
first in the AFC South.
Yeah, they're first in the
AFC South.
They're going. The chances
they're not going to finish that way, but they are first in the AFC
chances
South.
Are they will lose the next 15 games. However, if the Texans can pull out wins like this against worse teams, they're not going to make the playoffs. No shot now. If they can pull out games like this, you might have an indication that Culley may be a good coach. That's what you get out of this. Because Tyrod Taylor, if you were able to work Tyrod Taylor and Mark Ingram to a successful offense, then you're doing something right as a coach. However, it's interesting to see Mark Ingram, as old as he is, and obviously he's now on the Texans, productive, 85 yards and a touchdown, good waiver wire pickup possibly with injured running backs coming out. And then Danny Amendola, I think they picked him up not too long ago, and he puts up a touchdown for them. Other than that, again, not really indicative of the season. The Jaguars these are probably bottom 3 teams in the NFL. They're both not going to make the playoffs. I just say in terms of the Jaguars, you have a little bit of promise coming from Trevor Lawrence being able to be somewhat productive, obviously making mistakes. Max?
I'm sorry to be the negative guy here and not talk about the good that happened. I personally refuse to look at this game and think like, wow, the Texans are going to be better than we thought. I think this says more about the state of the Jaguars and not Trevor Lawrence at all. Again, the problem for me has never been Trevor Lawrence. He's a great quarterback, and he played great this game. The one touchdown pass he had, I believe it was the second one he threw, was a great pass. But just looking at that organization, and the one thing I'm always going to come back to is every week, it seems for the past 3 weeks, there's always been a rumor that Urban Meyer is not doing well with that organization, that the players aren't thrilled with him. And then it shows on the field, I feel like, because they lost bad to a team that has really no talent. That Texans team really doesn't have a strength anywhere on that field, I could think. I mean, like I said, last year, they had the quarterback. This year, they don't have that. And it just goes back to what I'm saying about the Jaguars. Big names, they look sexy. They might sell jerseys. They may sell tickets temporarily, but it doesn't make you a cohesive unit. And that's what we're seeing here. I just don't get how this organization can do this. I mean, yes, every few or so years, they have some hope, and this year's no different, but it just goes to show you, like, when the top down doesn't change, nothing will.
I 100% agree with you. And in terms of Urban Meyer, I agree. I've also heard rumors and read articles that the franchise is not happy with him and neither of the players. So if they continue to lose like this, it's a concern. And especially to a team like the Texans, who should be the worst team in the NFL by far.
Like, if you're Urban Meyer, like, so one thing I saw a couple weeks ago where he basically went out and said, like, we need all our players to get vaccinated. And I'm like, okay, fine. Like, that people would agree with you, but you're doing with professionals. You don't really go out and say it. When you're in college, you could. Maybe if you're Bill Belichick, you can do that because you win all the time. You're Urban Meyer, you're a first-year head coach. You got to know what you can say and can't. You can't boss your players around the same way that you did in college. It just doesn't work that way.
Mm-hmm. Doesn't. I agree with you. So moving on from there, we have the Eagles-Falcons. Eagles obliterate the Falcons 32-6. Jalen Hurts, 264 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Miles Sanders, 74 yards. You had Gainwell, who's now technically the backup for the Eagles, 37 yards and a touchdown. I'm seeing reports of him being a good waiver wire pickup. Let's keep an eye on him. Devonta Smith, 71 yards, touchdown. Jalen Reagor, 49 yards and a touchdown. Dallas Goedert, 42 yards and a touchdown. On the Falcons side of things, not great. Matt Ryan, 164 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. Cordarrelle Patterson was their leading rusher with 54 yards, which it's Cordarrelle Patterson is your leading rusher. You have a problem. Mike Davis only 49 yards. And then offensively, Calvin Ridley at 51 yards. I mean, look, I'm seeing so much hype for the Jalen Hurts and the Eagles train. Don't buy into that. Okay. The Falcons are horrific. It says more about the Falcons than it does the Eagles. I think it shows promise for Jalen Hurts, don't get me wrong, that he can beat up on a really bad team. And, he's the type of quarterback that I think he's achieved the level in the NFL that he's a quarterback that if you put enough talent around him, you can win a Super Bowl with him. I like to think of quarterbacks like mid-tier, like Eli Manning. As a big Giants fan that I am, I never thought he was that fantastic of a quarterback, but he was good enough that when you put an insane defensive line like Osi Minora, Michael Strahan, etc., you can win championships. So I think Jalen Hurts has achieved that level, but I'm seeing, I think Jalen Hurts, I saw a piece that said Jalen Hurts' jerseys went up 500% in sales, and it's just, I would not buy into the hype train yet. Promising, don't buy into the hype train. The Falcons, they're a mess, top to bottom. What are we doing here? Receiving yards, Kyle Pitts, 31 yards, hardly getting involved. How many yards did you put? What was their total yardage on offense? They had 260 yards on offense.
All I know is they scored 6 points for a team with apparently such an offensive advantage.
Yeah, go ahead, Max. This Falcons team's terrible.
Yeah, I honestly don't even really know what to say because it's 2 teams I expect to be really bad, and I guess one comes in is just less bad. I don't know. This Falcons team only seems to go downhill, even when they fire their head coach. Apparently, I mean, it's no secret the Falcons were going to rebuild once they traded Julio Jones. That was like all they were saying. So, I mean, as far as this year, Falcons fans, get ready for a lot of losses. And for the Eagles, I'm with you. Don't buy into the Jalen Hurts hype just yet. Let them play more quality teams. This Sunday will be a good way to see that as they play the 49ers.
So going forward, we have the Steelers and the Bills. Really interesting game here. Steelers pull it out 23-16. Kind of embarrassed the Bills. Very unexpected to me. Looking at the game, Steelers, Ben Roethlisberger, 188 yards and a touchdown. Najee Harris, 45 yards, carrying on the ground. And then we had Juju with 52 yards. Claypool, 45 yards. And then Deontay Johnson with 36 yards and a touchdown. Looking at the Bills side of things, Josh Allen, 270 yards and a touchdown. Singletary, 72 yards, no touchdowns. And then receiving-wise, you had Stephon Diggs with 69 yards, 60 yards from Cole Beasley, 52 yards for Emmanuel Sanders, and your only touchdown was Gabriel Davis with 40 yards and a touchdown. Really unproductive game for both teams. I feel like the Bills dropped this one. The Bills are 0-1. I think this is the final time they're going to have a losing record this season. I think they're going to continue to win from here on out. This is a game they dropped. On the Steelers side of things, what this comes down to is the fact that, the Steelers defense is great. They extended TJ Watt, and that was a good move. Don't get me wrong. TJ Watt is TJ Watt, as well as the players they have around him. So again, actually TJ Watt had 2 sacks there. The Steelers defense is fantastic, and Mike Tomlin as a coach is also fantastic. And he will, even though they don't have a quarterback really, they have a dead carcass for a quarterback. They will make it work. The Steelers could be, again, this team. It's hard to say where they're going to end up compared to last year. I know a lot of the Steelers players. I follow, I think, Chase Claypool on Instagram. I see a lot of things that he posts. These Steelers players are hungry for not being the first round out in the playoffs again. So we may have a different result this season. I don't know. I'm not going to buy into the Steelers hype yet. But again, all I can say is Mike Tomlin's a good coach. This defense is real. And I don't know how far they're going to go. They could make another undefeated run and then lose first round of the playoffs because they simply do not have the talent to go further. But again, I think it says more about the Steelers coaching. The Bills just dropping the ball. Interesting game here. One of those unexpected scores that I really didn't see coming this week. I think the Bills are going to bounce back, and I can't tell you what the Steelers are going to end up.
The more I thought about this game coming into it, the more and more I thought was this is the kind of game the Steelers are going to win because Mike Tomlin, whenever he has to go up against a team that he's not expected to beat at all, he turns in a great performance. When he plays a terrible team, then he's not the same head coach. This was the game where he was going to play a really good team, and he won. And I'm not going to buy into the Steelers hype. I honestly would even still doubt they make the playoffs because I think the talent, not necessarily the talent on offense, but really the quarterback and the offensive line are not good enough to get it done. And the skill positions aren't quite good enough to completely do all the work. So, I mean, the defense is great. That defense will keep them in games. It'll win them some games. I just don't think they're going to make the playoffs. And talking about the Bills, we were talking on this podcast a couple of weeks ago that we expected this team to be near the top, and we both agreed about that. I was talking to one of my buddies after that, and he pretty much said was, if you look at this Bills team, especially on offense, they have 2 great players, Allen and Diggs. What do they really have around that?
That's true. I mean,
it might be one of those things where the Bills figure out this year they need a lot more help for their quarterback and their receiver. So, I mean, I still definitely think the Bills are going to make the playoffs. They'll probably win that division, but it could be one of those things where they realize they need more. And this might be a perfect example of that.
True. I think they're still going to be a great team this year. And in terms of getting over the hump, they may need more. I mean, when you look at running back position, Singletary, serviceable. Their offensive line, serviceable.
Not great.
Cole Beasley, serviceable. Tight end, Knox, serviceable. Nothing that really stands out, Gregory Rousseau, no sacks that game. So going on from there, we have the 49ers and the Lions. 49ers pull it out 41-33. Garoppolo had 314 yards and a touchdown, and the Lions came in for a red zone look, got 5 yards and a touchdown there. In terms of rushing, Mitchell steps up with 104 yards and a touchdown. Mostert, only 20 yards, goes down with a season-ending injury per usual. I've drafted him 2 years in a row now, and it's just it's
I didn't draft
painful.
him this year. Not this year.
They're calling him Raheem Mostert, and apparently his wife's very upset that people are calling that. I wouldn't be too
What are they
upset.
calling him?
Raheem Mostert.
Oh my god.
It's like his wife's upset because like obviously it's
I
real, it's not
mean-
just football, but it's like you gotta lighten up a little bit. Obviously,
Yeah.
people are just upset that he gets injured. They don't when they're saying that, it's like they don't want to see him injured. But Hasty also 3 yards and a touchdown. And then receiving wise, Samuel 189 yards and a touchdown. He's kind of becoming the real deal there. That's a fantastic game out of him. You can't ask much more out of Samuel. Kittle 78 yards, no touchdowns. And then defensively, the 49ers also lost Jason Verrett for the season.
Again, he's another
again,
one.
yeah. So
I'm
going to talk about the 49ers a little bit. Lions, Jared Goff, 338 yards, 3 touchdowns, interception. Williams, 54 yards and a touchdown. Hawkinson with 97 yards and a touchdown. DeAndre Swift, 65 yards and a touchdown. This is all receiving. Swift only had 39 yards rushing. So going off this game, also on the Lions side of things, Okudah goes down with an injury now for the season. Going off the 49ers, I'm scared for this 49ers franchise for a couple of reasons. They're down two of their starting players already, pretty decent players. We remember what happened to the 49ers last year, completely derailed by injuries. I don't want to say it's happening again, but it's 2 players down, 2 really good players. I think Melissa's an elite running back rather. And then Verrett is also, I think, near elite corner. He's not really there anymore, but he's still a really good corner when he's on the field.
He's a great player, but he's never healthy.
It's true. So you lose those 2 players, it's a big loss. And then on both sides of the ball, they give up so many points to this Lions offense, who is very limited. Their wide receiver core is pretty much non-existent. They have Hawkinson, who I think is a really good tight end, and then DeAndre Swift, and you have Jared Goff. That team should not be putting up 33 points on you, especially when you have the defensive line that they do. As Fred Warner, you have a good defense there. You have a solid secondary. The secondary is probably the least best part of the defense, but giving up 33 points to the Lions is as bad as the Lions probably should be. It's not a good look. I'm a little concerned for this 49ers team. I didn't think they were going to be that great this season anyway. You pull out a win against the Lions, but if you go against a better team, you're probably going to take losses, especially now that you're down 2 of your starting players. On the Lions side of things, I'm just upset for Okudah because I had high hopes for him coming out of Ohio State. I thought he was going to be one of the best corners we've seen in years. And he was not great in his rookie season, and now he's injured. So we're going to have to wait for the 3rd year to see if he makes any progressions. Going a little off topic here, I just hope that Patrick Surtain could be everything that I thought Jeff Okudah would be. So we'll have to see how he turns out, although Denver played pretty well. We'll get to that in a minute. But do you have any comments about the 49ers Lions game?
Well, one of the things about the 49ers is I always say I think they can be good, especially on offense. I definitely think they're one of the most elite teams in the league from on paper standpoint. But again, if they stay healthy, I feel like we're going to have to ask this question every week, even if they're healthy, because it's just a theme for them at this point. Like, it just sucks to see such bad talent wasted. And you always have to wonder, like, what's their training like? Do they do enough conditioning in the offseason? There needs to be some soul searching done there potentially, because if more players start to go down next week, it could be really concerning. As far as the defense giving up 33 points, I'm willing to let that go this time around because they gave up 16 of those points down the stretch when they were choking. So I'm willing to think that won't happen again. At least I think so. We'll have to see what happens there. And for the Lions, I'll touch on Jeff Okudah. It's a shame to see any guy that talented and that highly drafted be a bust. And right before he got hurt, I was looking at. Well, I saw a clip of one of his position coach yelling at him, supposedly, "Do your job," and which says a lot. And honestly, you have to think: is it him? Which a lot of it probably is, or is it the Lions? Because like, what if he goes to another team and just plays a lot better because the Lions are just a terrible organization? It's happened before, and with a certain other quarterback we're probably going to discuss later, it looks like it is happening. So yeah. It sucks that almost everything the Lions touch, it seems like it just goes to waste.
Mm-hmm. So going on from there, we have the Bengals and the Vikings. Bengals win it 27-24. Going off the Vikings, Cousins, 351 yards, 2 touchdowns, pretty good out of him. Dalvin Cook, if you like to see more yards, 61, had a touchdown. Receiving, Adam Thielen was the only highlight, 92 yards and 2 touchdowns, which is pretty good. That's probably the best receiving performance for the Vikings. Then you had Justin Jefferson, limited to 71 yards. I really want to see Justin Jefferson do amazing. I just want to be I want to be able to witness history. Again, he had such a great rookie year. And then looking at the Bengals, Joe Burrow, 261 yards, 2 touchdowns. Mixon, 127 yards and a touchdown. Receiving wise, Jamar Chase having a fantastic game, 101 yards and a touchdown. And then T. Higgins with 58 yards and a touchdown. Ultimately, takeaways from this game, the Bengals are pretty good. They looked good in this game against a solid team in the Vikings. Joe Burrow played pretty well. Joe Mixon played really well. Jamar Chase had a fantastic game. You really see that LSU connection, especially with that touchdown pass. Beautiful, beautiful. You have T. Higgins, who's still performing. Again, I think T. Higgins is one of those more underrated receivers in the league. He's just so big. He's I think he's 6'4", 6'5". He's such a presence out there. I'm a big fan of T. Higgins. On the Viking side of things, it's just another example. The Vikings cannot get things going. Year after year, they've been in this purgatory state of being an okay team. My solution for the Vikings, obviously, I think they need to work on their defense. They signed Harrison Smith, but you have people like Patrick Peterson. You have an aged defense, and I think that's going to need work. Offensively, you have some great pieces: Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, Dalvin Cook. Kirk Cousins is pretty solid. He may want to upgrade Kirk Cousins, but I think, personally, I don't hate Mike Zimmerman. I might let him go. I think he might be time to move on from him. Not that he's a bad coach, but you need something to give this franchise a spark, and I don't think he's doing it. We're only 1 game into the season. You got to give it time, I guess. Probably to the halfway point, but I'm, again, concerned for the Vikings that they're going to fall into this purgatory state. And then on the Bengals side of things, I think they're looking pretty good. Max?
If you're the Vikings, and let me just say, the Bengals are a talented team, and they have a really bright future, but they're raw. If you're the Vikings, you had to win this game because against a team that's so young, that has so many pieces gelling together still, they're going to take time. And they had a chance to win even late in the game, but Cook fumbled the ball on the drive where they were going to go down and win, it looked like. You just gotta get it done somehow. It doesn't seem to matter who's their head coach or whatever. The Vikings just seem to never be able to get it done. And I just don't really know what to say. I mean, it was a close game. And I mean, I wouldn't say either side of the ball played terrible, but just one of the situations where you have to get it done. And I think if you're a Vikings fan after watching this game, the way it ended, you're probably crushed.
100%. Moving on from there, we have the Panthers and the Jets. Panthers take it 19-14. Little revenge game here for Sam Darnold. Zach Wilson on the Jets side of things, 258 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. Not much in the rushing game. Receiving, Corey Davis, their new signee, picks up 97 yards and 2 touchdowns. Little cry for Max because they had to let him go. Obviously, a little bit of upgrade in Julio, but going on the Panthers side of things, 279 yards and a touchdown. McCaffrey held to 98 yards, no touchdowns. Sam Darnold had that rushing touchdown. Receiving, McCaffrey, receiving obviously stepped it up there, 89 yards. McCaffrey's productive. Who would have guessed it? It's Christian McCaffrey. Ultimately, this game, not much to say here. The Panthers are still not a good football team. I like their head coach. I think they just lack talent in various aspects to really become a really good franchise, and they're building on it. And they went against a pretty bad Jets team. Again, I don't think this game is really indicative of either team. They're both not great teams. Both probably not make the playoffs. With that being said, going on the Panthers side of things, I'm happy for Sam Darnold. He seems a lot happier with the Panthers franchise. So I think it's a better fit for him there. He may see a little bit of a revitalization for his career. I wouldn't say he's a superstar or anything again, or what he turned out to be. Still a lot more time to get there. It's good to see Christian McCaffrey healthy again and be productive. And I think my biggest takeaway from this game, and I'm going to call it now, Zach Wilson. I love Zach Wilson. I think, I don't know if you saw that play. He did a little escape out of the pocket, little dime to the end zone. I love that play. I think it's indicative of what Zach Wilson brings to the table in terms of future plays. I think between him and Trevor Lawrence, they're probably going to be the best 2 quarterbacks, maybe even Justin Fields, up to see how he turns out. I just love Zach Wilson. I think he is a superstar in the making. I think he has all the tools, all the intangibles to really become a great quarterback. I just love how he plays. I love how he makes his reads. Obviously, he's still a rookie quarterback. He's some growing to do. What he's put on the table so far, I'm really liking. If I'm a Jets fan, I'm excited with Zach Wilson. I'm excited with his performance. I'm looking towards the future like we have a shot.
I mean, I love everything about Zach Wilson. I love everything he can do. I love everything about him except for the team he's playing for.
Yeah.
And if you're a Jets fan watching this game and you can see Sam Darnold have a pretty decent game, like, yeah, he's probably still shaking up the jitters a little bit. But watching him do what he did, I think didn't he have a really long pass to Robbie Anderson for a touchdown?
Yeah, that as well. Yeah.
Like, it goes to show you that. I mean, not that any of this was news, but maybe recycling quarterbacks every 3 or so years is not going to work out for the Jets, because when you have to do that, maybe it's just your organization. Okay, it's one game. I mean, there's a long way to go for both teams, but that's really all I have to say, because I think both teams are still really raw, really young. So we'll just see what happens here. But it was a pretty tight, low-scoring game. I think we all expected that. So really, not a whole lot else to say.
100%. So here, I probably say this is unfortunately for Max, my favorite game of the week. We have the Cardinals and the Titans. Cardinals whooped the Titans 38-13. Cardinals side of things, Kyler Murray, 289 yards, 4 touchdowns, interception. Edmonds was decently productive with 63 yards, not much out of Connor with 53 yards. DeAndre Hopkins, 83 yards, 2 touchdowns. Christian Kirk, 70 yards, 2 touchdowns. Great waiver wire player. I pretty much get him every single year to sit on my bench. He's that wide receiver that when you need to fill in. Kirk is usually boom or bust, but that week that you need him to fill in for your starting receiver and he's a boom, it's fantastic. And then going over to the Titans side of things, Ryan Tannehill, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, 212 yards. Derrick Henry limited to 58 yards. Pretty low for Derrick Henry. And then Rodgers receiving had 62 yards, and then A.J. Brown, 49 yards and 1 touchdown. Julio Jones held to 29 yards. I'm going to say this. I know Max is going to have a lot more to say about Titans. Titans are not a bad team. This is not indicative of their entire season. They kind of blew this one. However, if you guys have been following the podcast for the past 2 years, even when I did the Sport Universe podcast with Brian, I have been hyping up the Cardinals for the past 2 or 3 years. I'm like, this is a team that's coming into their own. They might be held back by their coach in Kingsbury, but I like this team. And I'm going to say this now. This might be the biggest prediction I'm going to make this week. Right now, Kyler Murray is my favorite for MVP. I think Kyler Murray is going to win MVP this season as of right now. If you saw the plays he's making, he was making that Titans defense look silly in the way that they were rushing him. I mean, that was just one play, and it's been all over the highlights.
And he ran third down when he ran all the way across.
Yes, he ran away across the field. My favorite part of that play is he starts to run up the field and then juice back, completely shifting the Titans player. And then I think he had Edmonds down the field and he gave it a little dime. I mean, that is elite tier quarterbacking. That is equivalent to Patrick Mahomes when he's at his best. Maybe not the same exact arm talent or creation, but incredible play by Kyler Murray. I just really love this Titans team, and I think they're coming into their own. Cardinals team, rather, they're coming into their own. They're becoming that team that I always thought they were going to be. I wouldn't be surprised if the Cardinals go, I don't even know, it's 17 games a season. I think they're going to make the playoffs regardless. They may even win the division. I don't want to say that just yet, but fantastic game out of the Cardinals. Isaiah Simmons with the sack. I love it. And then I think the biggest defensive player out of the week, greatest performance, Chandler Jones was an absolute game disruptor against the Titans, whopping 5 sacks. And that's what Chandler Jones does. I feel like every year or other year, Chandler Jones has this game where he has an insane 5 sacks plus multiple tackles. I mean, he also had 6 tackles on top of that coming from a DN position, which is solid. I mean, monster game for Chandler Jones. I just don't think the Titans stood a chance in this one. Just the Cardinals were firing on all cylinders, and when the Cardinals are at their best, they are one of the top 5 teams in the NFL. I think when they're at their best, it's just the consistency, and Kingsbury, is going to hold them back. I just think this team has so much talent, and I think they're blooming. And if I'm a Titans fan, I wouldn't be too upset. I'm not going to hold you off anymore, Max. Go ahead.
Well, you wouldn't be too upset. I mean, I'm still pretty mad, and I'll try to be. It's been 4 days, so I'll try to collect my thoughts and be rational here. But there are definitely a lot of problems with this game. One of them, the play calling at the beginning. The first 3 drives were first down runs, and the first 2 drives featured play action passes on first down. And those drives were perfect examples of what the Cardinals knew the Titans were going to do, especially on the first strip sack that Jones had of Ryan Tannehill. It was a play action fake out, rolling out to the right, left, however you whatever your sense of direction is, whatever. They were rolling out to the side, and instead of selling on the run, Jones wasn't fooled. He went home on the play action and got Tannehill with no one. They completely out-schemed the Titans there. It's just one of those things where you can have all the talent, but if your play calling's predictable, you're not going to do well. And even later in the game so a lot of you probably know Derrick Henry is not a guy who do that well in the first half of the year, and he's not a guy who'll do that well in the first half of the game. He gets better as the game and the year go on. And this game is an example. I believe in the first half, he had something like 9 carries for 8 yards. And then they gave him the ball more in the second half, and he broke through a few holes. And instead of, of course, when the running game's working, you want to stick with it. But that's all Todd Downing did for like 4 straight plays. And when you run that often, the defense is going to pick it up. And the Cardinals did that, forced him into another play action pass. And then Chandler Jones strip sacked Tannehill. You can't fall into your own traps. And especially with Derrick Henry, like, again, love the dude. He's a great running back. He's not going to have his best game in the first game of the year or the second. He takes time to get better. And the team has to realize that. And another area of concern, the offensive line. I mean, Taylor Lewan is coming off of an ACL injury. Yeah, he's probably shaking off the rust. When you give up that many sacks, though, you have to be concerned. And in the interior is not really much to be concerned about. But if Lewan can't return to form and the right tackle position can't solidify, it could be tough. I mean, you can have all the talent you want, but if you can't protect your quarterback, it's going to be tough. And on defense, the big area of concern last year was the pass rush. I actually thought the pass rush did okay, in my personal opinion. Harold Landry had a sack. Jeffrey Simmons had a sack. Jeffrey Simmons is looking like he's going to be one of the best D tackles in the league. He's been only going upward. That's always a bright spot, I will say, about this team. Even Bud Dupree, he didn't get a sack, but he had a few pressures. He was chasing Murray down on that play we talked about. We went from sideline to sideline. He would have dropped Murray once or twice if Murray wasn't so freakishly mobile and athletic. It was literally anyone who had any less ability, Dupree would have probably dropped him. So I'm right now, he didn't get a sack, but I'm not going to complain about the ridiculous payment right now because it's one game. And the secondary I'm also concerned about because there's so much youth back there. I mean, it's tough to contain the offense when you have to stop DeAndre Hopkins, and that's exactly what Jack Rabbit Jenkins had to do. No small task, and he didn't do well. He didn't do horrible. He let up 83 yards for 2 touchdowns. That's not going to win you games, but when you're playing DeAndre Hopkins, that's about what you expect. And I'm just worried about this week going up against Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf, 2 excellent receivers. And Christian Fulton was another bright spot on this team, but he's still super young. This secondary has so much youth, and it's going to take time to develop. I still think the Titans are going to make the playoffs. I think we'll win the AFC South because I don't think any of the teams are as good as us, but I think it could take a few weeks to let everything gel. If there's one thing I'm going to say, in the season opener last year, they only scored 16 points, and that was against the Broncos, who had a significantly worse offense than the Cardinals do. So, again, this was never a need for panic, but it's certainly a cause for concern. So, we got to do better.
100%. I can't say any more than you did. Going from there, we have the Chiefs and the Browns. Probably my second favorite game of the week. Chiefs kind of blew it in the first half, but damn, they're the Chiefs. They came back and won it 33-29. Brown side of things, Baker Mayfield, 321 yards and an interception. Not great on his part. Nick Chubb, 83 yards, 2 touchdowns, fantastic. Kareem Hunt, 33 yards and a touchdown rushing. Also got involved in the passing game. David Njoku stepping up 76 yards here, they've been waiting for him to step up as a tight end for a while. Unfortunately, I have Boston Hooper. Was not great, but it was okay, 27 yards. Landry had 71 yards, and then Kareem Hunt also had 3 receptions for 28 yards. So he was a good fantasy player. Obviously, I have Hunt, so I'm happy about that. He's getting a little involved in the receiving game, but Hunt normally does. Defensively, Myles Garrett got his sack. On the Chiefs side of things, Mahomes and Hill did their thing. Patrick Mahomes, 337 yards, 3 touchdowns. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, 43 yards rushing. And then receiving-wise, Tyreek Hill, 197 yards, which was the most out of any receiving, most receiving yards in the league for the first game, so he leads the league. 1 touchdown. Travis Kelce always gets involved in the red zone. 2 touchdowns, 76 yards there. I think the Chiefs, they're so hard to beat at home. and I don't think they were really stood a chance of losing this game. They didn't execute great in the first half, and then they executed how they do in the second half. Not really concerned about the Chiefs. The Browns, however, I'm very excited for. Also concerned about one player. I think the Browns are a top 3 team in the NFL. This is their year. They went to the Chiefs on their home turf and nearly beat them. You got to remember, the Chiefs had the lead, I think, up until the, fourth quarter? Third quarter?
The Browns left this game all the way through almost.
Yeah, the Browns held the lead and the Chiefs home turf in 3 quarters. I think 2 things really hurt the Browns. One thing, I think the biggest thing, they played kind of conservatively. They didn't take many chances. They let 4th downs go. They punted. And when you're going against the Chiefs, you got to take risks if you're going to win. You got to really push the envelope, especially when the Chiefs are on the home turf. They're nearly impossible to beat at home. And then second of all, my question is, where is Odell Beckham Jr.? Didn't play in this game.
He's not playing next game.
And he's not playing next game. I just don't understand. This man has been injured for years. As a Giants fan, I want to say I'm happy to see him injured, but it works out because we traded him, and since he's gotten to the Browns, he has been really unproductive. Either injuries, is out with nagging injuries. It seems like more of a day-to-day thing that's keeping him out. I get that you don't want to rush him back. You'd rather have him healthy. It's just how long he's been injured since last season. So it's, how long is it going to take for him to get back? It's somewhat of a concern, especially if the Browns want to take the lead. I think the Browns fine-tune their game. If they have to go meet the Chiefs in the playoffs later in the season at home, I think the Browns can win. If everything on all cylinders is firing, I think another loss for them was they lost Ronnie Harrison to that ridiculous ejection that the Chiefs coach pushed him. And then he pushes back and then he gets ejected. The Chiefs coach is fine. Makes no sense to me. When you take Ronnie Harrison, I would say is borderline elite safety in the NFL. Definitely one of the better players on that defense in terms of the secondary. You remove him, it changes the game. And there's multiple factors going into this, but a healthy Browns team with Odell, with Ronnie Harrison back, with a better game plan, with the momentum saying, damn, we almost beat them. We got it next time. I can see the Browns upsetting the Chiefs in the playoffs with how they're playing right now. That's how confident I am in this Browns team. Baker Mayfield, not great, but again, no touchdowns, one interception. He still looked pretty good. I'm still confident. He looked good. So it's hard to say. And given that one interception really wasn't his fault, but again, he had no passing touchdowns either. I mean, he got hit as he threw it, and it got picked off. What can you do? But no touchdowns. It's sort of concerning. But again, he looked good. So I'm confident in this Browns team. I'm excited to see where they go.
I think one play you're forgetting about is late in the game where the Browns are punting and they botched it, and they gave the Chiefs
on the 15-yard line. Yeah,
the 15-yard line.
Yeah.
To be fair, that you could make the argument that left more time on the clock for the Browns because people would assume the Chiefs would have scored anyway. But anyway, the main takeaway is if this game was honestly everything I thought it would be, because I expected both teams to be really good. And, it's always tough to go out there and say the Browns are going to be great. I think they proved that this year they're going to hang around and be a really good team. And, I mean, it sucks that they lost the game, but it's 2 really good teams. There's nothing to really be discouraged about. You can be upset that they blew a double-digit lead or maybe at least 2 possessions. But, I mean, look forward to relish in this, Browns fans. You haven't been in this position in a long time. The fact that you were competitive with the 2-time AFC defending champions shows you that they're not going to mess around this year. And once OBJ gets back, assuming he will, which I'm sure he'll get back, and this offense is going to be loaded. And
100%.
And I also, one thing I want to say is I really like how this game wasn't so ridiculously high scoring. Like the Chiefs Rams game years ago when it went to the 50. Yeah, that's exciting. I do think it gets kind of ridiculous when teams score that many points because there's no defense played. But this game was the right amount of defense played, right amount of offense. I think this is about as good of a game as you could have asked for.
100%. Moving on from there, we have the Patriots. Dolphins take it 17-16. Looking at the stats, Tua, 202 yards, touchdown, interception. Gaskin, 49 yards rushing. Tua had the only rushing touchdown. Devontae Parker, 81 yards receiving. Defensively, wasn't anything spectacular. And then on Patriots side of things, Mac Jones, 281 yards and a touchdown. And then rushing-wise, got all you wanted out of Harris with 100 rushing yards. Unfortunately, no touchdowns. Nelson Aguilar, 72 yards receiving and also a touchdown. Ultimately, again, this Patriots team, I think they are what they are. Great coaching, huge lack of talent. and they're going to be held by that. However, Mac Jones looked very good. I think they made a good decision in getting him. He provides them a better opportunity to win now and in the future than Cam Newton ever would have. So I'm happy with the decision. Mac Jones is looking like one of the better rookies out of this class. I'm from everything I've seen out of the rookie quarterbacks I drafted in this draft class. I don't see anyone that looks like a bust or anything or looks bad. Trey Lance looks promising. Justin Fields looks promising. Mac Jones, Zach Wilson, Trevor Lawrence. Every single quarterback drafted out of this draft is looking promising. So it's exciting to see. We have this new wave of quarterbacks coming in the NFL. And on the Dolphins side of things, a solid job by Tua. Again, he had rushing yards, the rushing touchdown plus the passing yards. That Patriots defense, again, with how good their coaching is, I don't care if they could have high schoolers on that field. They'd be competitive in the NFL because Bill Belichick is that good of a coach, especially defensively. And, with Tua, every single time they've played the Patriots, Tua struggled. No surprise there. They came out with the win. I can't be too mad. I don't think either of these teams are particularly going to make the playoffs, but again, promising out of Mac Jones. And then I think Tua did a solid job. That Patriots defense is always tough to figure out. It's been a struggle for Tua ever since he came into the league last year.
I really didn't watch this game closely, so there's not really a whole lot I can comment. Yeah. Basically, what I can say is this game was about everything I expected. I expected to be like a 50-50 chance to win. I picked the Pats because I thought Belichick would lead them to a victory, and I didn't think they'd lose to the Dolphins on their home turf. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, I guess for the Patriots, I want to focus on them more than anything here. I mean, they have a guy who can be their legit quarterback of the future. So give him some time to gel. I think it'll turn out fine. But this Patriots team, like I said this year, maybe they'll make the playoffs. I can see it happening, actually, because of Bill Belichick. I do think they have more talent than they did last year, which isn't saying a lot. But, I mean, don't expect them to return to their glory days of the past anytime soon.
Very true. So moving on from there, my least favorite game of the week, the Broncos and the Giants. Broncos crushed the Giants 27-13. And that score is honestly a little bit inflated in terms of the Giants. They didn't deserve 13 points, but Teddy Bridgewater, 264 yards, 2 touchdowns. Melvin Gordon rushing 101 yards and a touchdown. Receiving Jerry Jeudy, 72 yards. And then going over to the Giants side of things, Daniel Jones, 267 yards and a touchdown. Daniel Jones also had a rushing touchdown, the only rushing touchdown of the game. Saquon Barkley held 26 yards rushing. And then Sterling Shepard, 113 yards and a touchdown. Slayton with 65 yards. Golladay with 64 yards. And then Barkley also got involved in the passing game with one reception for 1 yard. And then Tooney, only two receptions, -2 yards. This Giants team, man. I mean, I don't even know where to start. The Broncos are still not that great of a team. They're better than they were last year. Sorry if the Broncos got to go off the Giants. The Broncos, right? Teddy Bridgewater, the team seemed confident in them. I saw the speech between Von Miller and Teddy Bridgewater. He's like, I haven't felt good about the team since Peyton was at quarterback. And that's saying something. That means that the players on the Broncos, at least Von Miller, are confident in what Bridgewater brings to the table. They think they can win with him. And they performed pretty well against the Giants, against a pretty good Giants defense, typically. So that's all I can say about the Broncos. I can't say they found their quarterback, but they look more promising than I thought going into this season. Also, before I go off the Broncos, don't let me forget, Jerry Jeudy, high ankle sprain. Everyone thought it was broken off the video. If you saw that, had too much flexion outwards. And it looked pretty bad, but at the same time, as bad as a fracture can be, a high ankle sprain can be just as bad because that ligament tearing can cause a lot of damage, and it could be one of those nagging injuries that could bother him all year. So it's a little bit concerning for Jerry Jeudy. I know he's going to be out for, I can't tell you how long, probably a month or more. But, it's good that he's not done for the season, but I think this might affect his entire season just because it's going to be those injuries that nags him. Going to the Giants side of things, horrible. Daniel Jones is a glorified running back. This man passing, he gives me nothing exciting. There's nothing he does that's overly fantastic. The best, when you think about Daniel Jones, think about all the highlights you've seen of him. What is his best attribute? His ability to run the football. And it's not like he's running it like Lamar Jackson. He's got decent speed and he knows how to hit open holes. You can get that in another quarterback. Damn. I'm saying this. I'm done with Daniel Jones as a Giants fan. 1 week, 1 game into the season. I hope we draft a new quarterback soon. I have also faith and confidence in him. Saquon Barkley, I'm also very concerned for. He took it really light this week, and he was very unproductive. Does not seem like the same player. look, I'm looking back at on the film for this week. There's so many plays where it's like the old Saquon Barkley would have bounced that hole and would have had a home run touchdown. This Saquon Barkley will shoot the hole, try to force an extra 3 yards and get up and go back to the backfield for the next play. It's concerning. I hope this is not Saquon Barkley permanently. He's still trying to, I guess, nurse the injury or I don't know what's the word, play things safe. I'm hoping we see the old Saquon Barkley because that Saquon Barkley, in my opinion, was the best running back the NFL has ever seen. Potentially, the injuries have really hurt him. I just thought he had that much talent, so I really hope he gets back there. Shepard stepping up was cool. Slayton stepping up was cool. I like to see a little bit more out of Galladay. It was not fantastic there. Let me get to the defense now. Awful. I've seen JV high school teams tackle better than the Giants did on Sunday. It was just so bad. So bad. Tackle. Oh my God. The coverage was not great. The only highlight on our defense I would say out of that game was I'm still working on his name. Ojulari.
Ojulari.
Yeah, Ojulari. Yeah, thank you. Was one of the better rookies out of the first week. Had a sack, also two tackles, and he had a bunch. I think he had like four pressures. Really good game out of him. I'm happy to see him. We might have some edge pressure for the first time in forever between him and obviously Leonard Williams. Overall, not a good game for the Giants. Very disappointed. Max?
This is actually one of the games I've watched because I know a lot of Giants fans back at school, and they were watching in my suite, and it just, for the Giants, didn't look good at all. I mean, what can I say else about Daniel Jones? I mean, yeah, he can run the ball decently, but when it comes to his passing game, it's just so vanilla. The offensive line was bad, but what did he do to really show encouragement? Like, and fumbling the ball too, it's not what you expect from a third-year pro. You just don't. And really moving on to the Broncos, I personally was really impressed by Teddy Bridgewater. It's not like he was able to stretch the field that well. It wouldn't be really game changer, but he does what he does. He doesn't lose you the games. He made good decisions. He got the balls to the open guys. Seemed like he was spot on the whole game. I mean, again, it's not going to win you a Super Bowl, but it's definitely going to keep you in games. And so, yeah, that's really all I could say there. I mean, the Broncos, all the Broncos had to do in this game was do enough to not lose it. And that's what Teddy Bridgewater did. So, and also I'm going to comment on Saquon. I was also thinking about that. The one word I used to say, the way he looked, was scared. I totally agree with you. There were definitely a number of runs he could have bounced to the outside, but he just didn't. Once he got to the defensive line, he just stopped running. And I mean, can you blame a guy who's been so injured? I mean, not really. He'll probably have to take a few games to shake off the jitters. Hopefully it's the case, but it just didn't look good for him. And as far as Daniel Jones go, I'd say that at this point, it's a failed experiment unless something drastic happens. I don't see him ever being what a 6 overall pick should have been. Saquon, I don't want to give up on him yet because of the talent there, but if he doesn't run like he used to, if he's going to remain scared like that, it's not going to happen.
And then I didn't even mention it. It pretty much goes out saying the Giants' offensive line is horrific. One of the worst offensive lines in the NFL. Constantly give up pressure. It makes Daniel Jones, as untalented of a quarterback as he is, it makes his life even worse. I'm thinking back to the past 5 years. Giants have rarely drafted offensive linemen in the first round. They picked Andrew Thomas, who Eric Flowers. Yes, I think that was like 7 years ago now. So all horrific pick. Even though I think he moved him to guard. I think was he playing for Washington now?
He's in Miami, I believe.
He's in Miami. I think he got moved to Miami. I think he plays not strictly guard, but he plays guard. He plays second.
I'm pretty sure he plays guard. I mean, that's what he can do.
And he got better, given he wasn't on the Giants. It's just the fact that, look, when we drafted Andrew Thomas, I didn't want Andrew Thomas. I wanted Wirfs. I wanted Wills. We went with Andrew Thomas. He was not my favorite tackle out of that draft. And look at Wills.
What's the other tackle in the draft? No, I think that we're on that. I forgot. It was Wirfs, Wills,
Becton,
Thomas,
Mekhi Becton.
Mekhi Becton, that's who it was. Yeah, all three of them you'd rather have over Andrew Thomas.
Exactly. And I wanted any three of those over Andrew Thomas. We picked Andrew Thomas, and he was pretty abysmal last year. That didn't show me any promise this game. And then the rest of the offensive line, Hernandez was like a second round pick a couple years ago. Not great. Nick Gates is at center for us right now. Not great. I think at guard we have Billy Price is at center, and then we move Nick Gates to the guard this week. Billy Price was a first overall pick out of Ohio State for the Bengals. Showed promise for the Bengals, didn't really pan out. We have, and then I think right tackle right now, I think we have Nate Soldier, if I'm not mistaken. I think they're playing him over Matt Pert. So awful offensive line. It needs to be addressed. This next draft, if we don't draft offensive line, given depending on where we fall, if a quarterback is available, that's really good. We take him. Other than that, go offensive line. I've talked too much about the Giants. Going on from there, we have the Saints and we have the Packers. Saints absolutely destroy the Packers 38-3, and wow. Aaron Rodgers, 133 yards.
The one team that played worse than the Titans this week was the Packers. 133
yards for Aaron Rodgers, 2 interceptions. Jordan Love steps in, throws 68 yards, nothing on touchdown interception. Colin, A.J. Dillon, 19 yards rushing, was their leading rusher. Jones with 9 rushing yards, on 5 carries. Devontae Adams, 5 yards, 56 receiving yards on 5 receptions. Bad. The Saints, on the other hand, wow. Jameis Winston, 148 yards, 5 touchdowns. Didn't have to go very far, but he was efficient. 0 interceptions.
No weapons.
Exactly. Alvin Kamara.
That's it.
Alvin Kamara, 83 yards on 20 carries. And then
Kamara had that great of a game either.
It's true, yeah. And then receiving wise, Harris was their leading receiver at 72 yards and touchdown. Johnson had 2 touchdowns. Trautman, 18 yards. And Kamara also had a receiving touchdown. And Hogan, I don't want to say this. One, I'm not counting the Packers out yet. I'm seeing Aaron Rodgers is washed up, et cetera. Given abysmal game from him, they completely blew this one. I wouldn't count them out. I don't know where they're going to fall now. That's a huge difference in score to a team that should not be good right now. So I don't know what to say, but Packers concerning me. I wouldn't count them out. On the Saints, on the other hand, Jameis Winston, I think, has really stepped up his game, and I did not expect it. He's showing so much promise between the preseason and now. Jameis Winston is somehow revitalized his career in his 6th, 7th year in the league. Well, I can't remember how long he's been in the league for at this point, but he's showing a lot of promise. Are we in a different universe where Jameis Winston threw 5 touchdowns without 5 interceptions to match? Incredible. If he could see a play like that, you got Kamara to step up. If you eventually get Mike Thomas back on the field, if that ever happens, the defense, I said it back when we were rating these teams preseason. I think their defense is solid. Lattimore, Davis, Jenkins is sort of on the end there, but
locked up Marshawn Lattimore after this game. Like immediately after the game, they signed him to an extension. So it's defense. The Desmond Trufant, who I think is fantastic, but he gets the job done. They have Tano. I suck with his last name. It's Villanova, great guy. This defense can play, and if James Winston's not going to turn the ball over, this Saints team could be something. Packers, I don't know where they're at. I was abysmal, Max. What do you think? So I will say I wrote a Sport Universe article about the Packers. I just submitted today. We'll see when Brian posts it. So check that out. But pretty much what I said in that article, I'm going to say here. I personally am not going to get on the Saints hype train just yet. And Jameis Winston had a great game, but you know how inconsistent he is, and I definitely think he can return back to throwing interceptions at a prolific rate. So we'll see where that goes. But I really think this says more about the Packers than anything. Because, and let me just put it to you this way. When you're a quarterback and coming back to a team, you want it out. And the agreement is basically, okay, you're going to stay here one more season, but then you're gone. Are you going to try that hard? And I'm not going to say Aaron Rodgers is throwing these games, but what is your motivation level when you're going to play for a team where you're never going to be out? And Devontae Adams, too, he very well could be out after this year. It just, the drama from the offseason looks like it must have carried over into this game. And yes, it's just one game. But with everything around that organization, I just don't see it. And this is an extreme long shot. And I'm going to say it anyway. What if the Packers are struggling so bad at the deadline, they decide to cut their losses and say, we're not going to lose our guys to nothing. We're going to trade Rodgers and Devontae Adams and get a haul for them because this is over.
That would be insane.
That'd be unprecedented. It's never happened before.
I'm personally in favor of teams doing that. When they know a rebuild is coming, dump everybody.
Like the NHL does it. Whenever they know they're not going to re-sign their guys, they get rid of them. Why doesn't the NFL do the same thing? When has there ever been a real star traded at the deadline?
And, people are going to say, oh, Aaron Rodgers is on the last year of his contract, is old. Who would want that? Look at Brady. He went to a new team.
Teams want to win.
Exactly.
If they think so that one quarterback away, they're going to pull the trigger.
Exactly. So Aaron Rodgers is Aaron Rodgers. He's still a talented quarterback. And then look at Tom Brady, right? Had a great year in Tampa, and now he signed the extension. He's there for a few more years. You could easily have that with Aaron Rodgers. He's happy with your franchise. You got to bet in your own franchise saying, we're going to do well enough, and we have the staffing and we have the infrastructure. We're going to keep Aaron Rodgers happy. He's going to re-sign with us. And that's the type of bet you take when you trade for Aaron Rodgers. You definitely could. I think the Packers are better off dumping, because think about it. They can't go, we're gonna have to find a new quarterback. They have their quarterback in Jordan Love. He showed a decent amount of promise, and they're gonna have to, if they trade Aaron Rodgers, he retires, you're gonna have to use Jordan Love. He was a first round pick. You're gonna use him at some point, at least test him out. So you have that at least for a few years, and then use your plethora of picks to rebuild the rest of the team. It makes a lot of sense, So going off of that, a little passionate there. Next game we have the Rams and the Bears. Rams destroy the Bears. I wouldn't destroy them, but had a very good game against the Bears, 34-14. Bears, not much going there, 206 yards and an interception for Dalton. Justin Fields stepped in at quarterback, had that rushing touchdown, 3 yards for a touchdown. The more I see Justin Fields play, the sooner I see Dalton's job going away. Montgomery, fantastic game, 108 yards and a touchdown. Receiving-wise, Goodwin was so solid, 45 yards. Not much going on there. The Rams are, I think, everything that we poised them out to be going into this season. Matt Stafford, 321 yards and 3 touchdowns. Henderson, 70 yards and a touchdown. Receiving. Cooper Kupp, fantastic game. I think he had a touchdown call back by a holding or something like that. I forget what it was, but the guy should have had more yards than he did. 108 yards and a touchdown. Van Jefferson, 80 yards and a touchdown. And then Higbee, 68 yards, and you had Woods with 27 yards and a touchdown, which not a great game for Woods, but it's all right. And then you had Ramsey had 7 tackles. Aaron Donald only had 1 sack in this game, but he was an absolute monster. The amount of pressures that he had in that game. The thing is about Aaron Donald, the way he gets double teamed now, people go, oh, why is he so highly rated? Look at the sack totals. Look at his pressure totals. Look at the fact that he gets double and triple teamed and beats them consistently. Yeah. He's a complete game wrecker. He is the best defensive lineman I've ever personally watched. I think he might be the best defensive lineman, at least interior defensive lineman of all time. And it's just going to be another one of those seasons for Aaron Donald. I was very highly impressed, despite him only having 1 sack. Highly impressed with his performance. All I can say about this: the Bears, they're going to lose this game. They're sort of in a rebuild stage. A lot of promise out of Justin Fields. I like what he did in that little goal line play. Great run for him. I think it was Cole Kmet was blocking for him on that play. Fantastic job on that play. If you guys go watch it, Kmet, I think he washed out the end, came up and got the secondary and blocked essentially two players in one play for Justin Fields there. Great blocking. That's the lineman in me just enjoying the blocking. But in terms of the Rams, very excited. This team, to my opinion, the way the Rams are playing right now, top 5 team in the NFL. Matt Stafford was, I think, an upgrade over Jared Goff. He provides a lot more versatility to that offense, especially going deep. Henderson stepped in, looked very nice. Sonny Michel only had 1 carry for 2 yards. Good backup there. Henderson did what they wanted out of him. The receiving core looks great. Think about it. Sean Jackson, I think, is their fourth string wide receiver. 2 yards, 21 receptions. This team they have depth, they have talent, they have the coaching. I really like this Rams team. I could see this Rams team winning the Super Bowl this year, which is, if you go back to how they were, I think, was it like 2 years ago, I said this Rams team was headed towards destruction. I hated it because they had no picks. Given they still have very little picks, but the team they have together right now is very good. And they had to be in win now mode. I really like this Rams team this year. I'm hyping a little bit on the Rams hype train right now. Max?
I think this is the one year that people are finally going to start to give Matt Stafford the respect he deserves, because now look at him. He's free from the hell of Detroit, and he puts together such a good game. I think he won NFC. Did he win NFC Offensive Player of the Week?
I believe he did, yeah.
He did, yeah. I think that right there, you come into your first game and you can light up the world like the way he did. I'm completely with you. I don't really have a whole lot more to add. This Rams team is really complete in every way. I personally don't like the fact that they don't have any picks. That might catch up to them, but there are a few weaknesses on this team. And if Matt Stafford can deliver those performances week in and week out, they're going to be a tough team to beat for sure.
100%. So moving on from there, we have the Raiders.
One more thing I wanted to talk about is the one thing I had a question about was, why didn't they use Sonny Michel more? I envisioned that being more of like a committee, if not Michel doing more of the work. And he didn't play till like the very end. I'm wondering about that. I personally think they're wasting him if they don't play him at all. Because I do think he provides, at the very least, that versatility. Maybe not versatility is the right word, but at least that extra component to the offense that the defense has to respect. So, yeah, I mean, that was one thing I didn't really get.
I'll say this. Sonny Michel got kind of traded late into the offseason, and I know that Sean McVay's running system, when you think back to the days of Todd Gurley, he ran it the best out of anybody, right? The way they run a lot of stretch plays, and it's a lot of reading for the running back to do. And maybe Sonny Michel's not comfortable. That'd be the only reason I see. But you're 100% right. They're already down on picks between having to trade away Garrett Goff and picks for Stafford. Already they were low on picks, and they go ahead and trade picks for Sonny Michel, who I think was worth the picks. But you're trading away picks. You got to use Sonny Michel. I think it definitely would help them. Henderson had a good game though, so that's also another reason. Like, why are we going to pull Henderson? He's having a pretty solid performance for us. So probably a combination of those two things, if I had to answer it. So going off of there, we have the Raiders and the Ravens. Raiders win in OT 33-27. Starting with the Ravens, Lamar Jackson 235 yards and a touchdown. Also had 86 yards rushing. Sammy Watkins 96 yards receiving. Brown had 69 yards receiving and a touchdown. Solid game out of him. Raiders, Derek Carr, 435 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 reception. Josh Jacobs, 34 yards rushing. Had 2 touchdowns, though. Darren Waller, 105 yards and a touchdown. And then you have Edwards with 81 yards receiving. Hunter Renfrow with 70 yards receiving. I've seen a lot of people hype up Derek Carr, saying he's the top 3 quarterback. I'm seeing a lot of hype for Derek Carr. I'm not buying into it. His Raiders team is too inconsistent. Given they played fantastic in this game. Their defensive line was really good. Josh Jacobs was efficient in the red zone. Derek Carr was really good, 435 yards passing. Darren Waller's good. I think this Raiders team, they've been 8-8 teams in the past. They may be a winning team this year. They may be a 10-7 team. I think they're playing. Yeah, I think I'd be right, because I'm still having trouble adjusting the records to the new game they had this year. So it'll be 10-7. Yeah, it would be. I could see them going 10-7. They can have a little bit of a winning record here. They're looking good so far. The Ravens is quite the opposite. As me and you predicted, they kind of took a step back this year. Question is, rushing wise, Williams is solid at 65 yards. You have Murray at 28 yards, not great. Lamar Jackson is this team's offense at the end of the day. Sammy Watkins and Brown are only so good. I'm not confident in this Ravens team. I don't think they have a shot to win the division. Between obviously the Browns and the Chiefs being so good, I do not see this Ravens team making the playoffs. It's going to be a bad year if you're a Ravens fan.
Yeah, I'm with you on the Ravens, especially because the fact that they lost last week in practice. They lost Gus Edwards and Marcus Peters for the season on back-to-back plays in practice.
Yeah.
How does that happen? I just don't understand.
And they signed Le'Veon Bell. He didn't even get a rush.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm with you. At this point, I don't see this Ravens team making the playoffs. They're just too short-handed. Lamar's super talented. And I do think with all these injuries, I definitely think he gets the benefit of the doubt this year if they don't make the playoffs because of how short-handed they are. Mm-hmm. But I just think, and especially through the year, he's limited. He's only going to do so much for you. Yeah. And as far as the Raiders go, again, when Derek Carr is on, he is on. He plays like a great quarterback, one of the best in the league. But it just consistency. Can they keep that consistency up? Yeah. I just don't know.
Remember, this Raiders team beat the Chiefs last year.
I'm going to look for is I'm going to try and watch this team more closely. Is it going to be on Derek Carr or on John Gruden? That's kind of the question I didn't talk about earlier. I was trying to figure out with Kyler Murray and Cliff Kingsbury. So far, I would believe it's Cliff Kingsbury who's the one holding the Cardinals back.
Yeah.
For other reasons I could have covered earlier. That's kind of relevant now. But for the Raiders, kind of same question. Is it the coach or the quarterback? Because on offense, the talent they have is pretty good. People don't talk about it a lot, but yeah. Josh Jacobs is a good running back. They have Kenyon Drake who can take some of the load off him. Darren Waller is a great tight end. Really good.
Yeah, and their offensive line is solid.
It's honestly at the point where, maybe this is a hot take for some people, but you could honestly, in my opinion, rank Kelsey is best tight end in the league, and maybe even Kittle and Waller 2A, 2B. You could even make an argument for 1A, 1B, 1C. I think Darren Waller is honestly almost as good, if not right at the class of those 3 tight ends. I think he's so good. And
if I'm being honest, I'd probably put Waller.
He's the best player by far.
I would put Waller over Kittle right now.
Yeah, I could, because Kittle's been hurt.
Yeah. With that being said, I guess that wraps up this week. So we'll go I think we're going to do a quick lightning round of projections for this upcoming week.
We got a game tonight.
Yeah, we're recording this on a Thursday. The Giants and Washington play in a couple hours now. So going Giants, Washington. I got to go with the Giants. A Giants fan, but I'm not happy about this game. Also, we forgot to mention Washington's game. Ryan Fitzpatrick out 6 to 8 weeks with a hip injury, I believe.
Yeah,
so that's good.
That game, did we?
Yes, I forgot to mention that.
There wasn't a whole lot of action in that game anyway.
Yeah, it's true. Did we miss that game?
Besides that catch by Terry McLaurin, if you didn't see that catch by Terry McLaurin, just look up Terry McLaurin catch. That was a thing of beauty.
Yeah. I'm trying to look. I don't see it on my list here. Did Washington play this week?
You just missed over it.
Yeah,
that's one of the games I didn't watch that closely anyway, so I personally couldn't comment too much.
Who did they play? Where
LA Chargers.
The Chargers. Oh, it's not on my list here for whatever reason. It must be glitched.
I'd say one thing about that game, and it's kind of surprising the Chargers didn't score more points for some people, but it's a good defense they played, and they have a new coach, so give them time. They're young. Justin Herbert's a great quarterback.
Chargers team has a lot of problems.
Yeah, a lot of. I think they'll make the playoffs. I think they will.
Yeah, I believe so as well as Washington. Lost Ryan Fitzpatrick. So I guess going to predictions now. Sorry,
Chargers fans, you guys usually don't win these close games, and you won this one, the first game of the year.
Exactly. They seemed. I don't know if you saw the clip, but Justin Herbert had held the game ball all the way through the post-game interviews. Wound up giving it to the coach. They're very behind this coach.
Awesome.
They love the coach.
That's what they need.
And that's going to be big. So going into our lightning round of projections, Giants, Washington. I say the Giants take it by a small margin.
No, the football team's going to take this game. What's Daniel going to do against that defense? Like, especially Chase Young against that offensive line. Like,
he's going to have a field day. 5-sack game for Chase Young, possibly. It's definitely possible.
Yeah, the Chandler Jones caliber game like last week.
Yeah. Raiders, Steelers. I'm taking the Raiders in this one by a small margin.
Yep, I'm taking the Raiders too. I think Steelers are going to get a little overconfident. The Raiders are going to come in. I feel like they're still going to fly under the radar. The Raiders seem to never really get that respect. I think they're going to go in there and show people that they do. I mean, at least for now, they deserve some respect.
Yep. 49ers, Eagles. I'm taking the 49ers by a medium margin. However, I wanted to say about the 49ers, which you forgot to mention before, is Sermon might step in at running back, and Mitchell, I think, is the declared starter at this point.
Mitchell is.
But Sermon is probably going to step up more and more into that role. And, he's got a lot of promise. People are really looking at him. So running back situation, I'm not too worried about with the loss of Raheem Mostert, but cornerback situation, you're not really placing threat like that.
As well. Yeah. I think the Eagles are kind of riding that hype. I think it's going to be kind of back to reality for Jalen Hurts. Again, that defense, that defense give up 33 points, but a lot of those points are given up late. I think that's not going to happen this week.
Yeah. Next game, we have the Browns and the Texans. I don't know what the exact spread is in this game, but if it's plus 40, I'm still taking the plus 40. I'm taking the Browns.
Yeah. No discussion needed there.
Yeah. Broncos, Jaguars. I'm taking the Broncos. Broncos go 2-0 to start the season by probably a decent margin there. Saints, Panthers. I'm taking the Saints.
Panthers.
Taking the Panthers.
I think it's going to be back like Jalen Hurts is going to be kind of back to reality for Jameis. They're riding that hype, but I think I think Saints are going to show more of their true colors this week.
All right, I'm taking the Saints. I'm slightly on the Jameis Winston hype train. Slightly. We'll see though. I'm taking the Saints in that game. There's a little bit of a disagreement there. Rams, Colts, easy. Rams by a good margin.
Yep.
Bills, Dolphins. Bills by a good margin.
I think it'll be close. I think the Bills are going to win it.
There you go. Patriots, Jets. I'm taking the Patriots.
It'll be a tough game. The Jets always seem to play them tough. I don't see Belichick losing 2 games in a row, especially when the Jets are the latter game.
Mm-hmm. Bengals, Bears. I'm taking the Bengals.
I'm going with the Bears. I think they can hold them on. I think the Bears defense is not what it used to be at all.
Yeah.
I still think and now I'm trying to second guess. I just have a feeling for the Bears. I'm just going to say I think it's the Bears.
Yep. I'm going with the Bengals. So we have this agreement there. So that's 2 games, guys. If you're paying attention, keep track. Falcons, Buccaneers. I'm taking the Buccaneers. Easy. Plus 40 spread. Yeah. Taking it. Vikings, Cardinals. Taking the Cardinals again.
Yep.
One team I'm on the hype train for, 100% Cardinals.
Yep.
I'm betting on them. Titans, Seahawks. I'm taking the Titans by a small margin.
I don't know. I feel like I can't have an opinion here. The Titans are a resilient team as much as I do want to complain about them. I do think they're going to come back and get a win this week. I think it'll be really high scoring. I don't think like I said earlier, I think it's going to be a nightmare game of going up against those receivers, but I think I do think the offense is going to figure it out. I think it's going to happen.
There you go. Cowboys, Chargers. You know what? Cowboys played really good last week. This might be one of the better games of the week right here. Cowboys Chargers. Keep an eye on this one. This one's I think is gonna be worth watching.
I forgot who I picked here. I gotta go. Yeah. I gotta go look back and see.
It's gonna be a 4:25 game.
I believe I picked the Chargers.
I'm going with the Chargers as well. I think for the sake of the NFC East and my Giants, I'm going with the Chargers. I think this Cowboys team is going to compete.
They're on my computer. Let me see who I picked here. I do believe I picked the Chargers. Yes, I picked the Chargers. Yeah, I believe in Herbert. And again, as well as the Cowboys played last week, Mike McCarthy is not a good head coach. So
very true. I'm going with the Chargers there. I'm a little bit slightly on the Chargers hype train. Chiefs Ravens easy. Chiefs by probably 20. Lions Packers. Oof. I'm going to go with the Packers. I think they're going to bounce back here.
Too, but that's a game where if they don't win,
this is the one where if you're the Packers and you drop the game to the Lions here, your concern is valid. You should be. Yep. With that being said, that pretty much wraps up our podcast. Max, any last comments?
I like this rapid fire picking the games after the podcast. We didn't do that last year, so we got to do it more often.
Exactly. So, other than that, I guess that wraps up the podcast. Thank you guys for tuning into this episode. We'll be back next week. Me and Max are both in the middle of school. Exams started, so trying to work out our schedule. It's getting kind of busy, but we're nailing it down. I just submitted my application to medical school yesterday. Fingers crossed. Who knows what's going to happen? Other than that, again, thank you guys for listening. Hope we're bringing more energy to this podcast. If you guys have any comments, questions, concerns, any suggestions, ideas, feel free to drop them in the comments below. I'm really excited to do this podcast. I think it's going really well. Hope you guys are enjoying as well. See you guys next week.